Okay. My next guest, as I said in the billboard, and not used to be on this show. He now is one of the writers and performers on Saturday Night Live, which premieres its new season next weekend, October 17th. He's a fine stand-up comedian. Would you welcome Whitney Brown?
Thank you. Thank you. You know, when you boil this whole Bork brouhaha down to its basics, I think what it's been is a debate over the history of the Constitution. And I think the one thing we've all learned is that history is a tricky thing. You can't get it mixed up with the past. Because you see, the past is the past. It's like what used to happen, whereas history is just what somebody wrote down on the subject. Which, if nothing else, explains why history repeats itself. Because writers plagiarize. This has been a very strange week, though. While Americans have been bantering over their basic rights and liberties, the Chinese have been bashing in the heads of bald-headed Buddhist monks in Tibet, which is quite a contrast, I think, because you don't really hear much about individual rights in China. Not for long, anyway. And sometimes I think maybe it's a cultural thing with them. The subject just doesn't come up that often. You know, you're born, you're short, you have straight black hair. Why rock the boat? I mean, it's not easy to be an individual in a crowd of 1 billion people. If you think about that, 1 billion people, that means that even if you're a 1 in a million kind of guy, there's still 1,000 exactly like you. I don't know, but democracy, it seems like these days, is on the rise everywhere in the world, including China. And the reason for that is because we have something on the side of freedom here in America that's more powerful than any totalitarian army, more powerful than any dictator. Greed. It's the American dream. I mean, look at it this way. No matter how much Gorbachev consolidates his power in the Politburo, he's never going to have his own baseball franchise. And that's got to sting just a little bit somewhere along the line. Because what does it availeth a man to rule the world if he doesn't have cable in his building? This is a great place, America. It's the land of opportunity, where you can get 13 albums for $1.99. And if you have any ambition, you can change your address and get 13 more. It's a place where everyone has the right to vote, provided, that is, they're willing to risk jury duty. It's the American dream, but it's an elusive dream, that dream, and I guess I could express it best with a little story. A story about rock and roll, about a man who became a king in a democracy. He was a poor kid who was raised in Tupelo, Mississippi in the early 1950s. He didn't have much, no rich parents, no formal education. All he had was a rockin' guitar, a sneer on his lip, a wiggle in his hip, and that certain something called talent. Now, unfortunately, he was black, so he never made a nickel. But a year later, Elvis Presley came along. He made almost $1 billion. So I guess being in the right place at the right time is the American dream. Not that it's a perfect place. We have racism here still to this day. They found a whole county last year in Georgia full of racists, Forsyth County. I remember the headlines. White trash bigots found in Georgia. It was a slow news day. But still, I think that headline just sums up, to me, racism compounded with racism, because I don't think it's fair to blame all white trash for the actions of those few. It's not going to get us anywhere. Just because a man has a few rusty appliances in his front yard and drinks cheap liquor out of a jelly jar and sleeps with his sister, it doesn't necessarily mean he's a bigot. I know I speak for a lot of white trash when I say we resent being lumped in with the redneck Peckerwoods. We're all Americans here. Some of us. And there's a poem on a plaque in the base of the Statue of Liberty by Emma Lazarus. I don't know what it says or anything, but in part it goes, send me you're poor, you're tired, you're hungry. Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Send me the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. Well, I think it's time to stop all this name-calling and live together as Americans. There's a lot of versions of the American dream. Martin Luther King had one of them. That one day in those red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners would sit down together at the table of brotherhood. It was an American dream that inspired the world. I have a dream, too. In my dream, I go to a job interview, but I'm not wearing any pants. Okay, he couldn't base a national policy on it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that all men are not created equal. Some have greater dreams, and I guess that's the purpose of individual rights. So thank you very much.